The NBA draft is less than a week away, and we're going to talk about scenarios where the Raptors trade up in the 2024 NBA draft. What's up, everybody? It's JJ Buckets. I told you what we're doing today, so usual drill before we get things going. Like the video, it helps the algorithm out a ton. I really appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Plus, if you plan on doing any responsible sports betting in the near future, just make sure to check out my link in the description below. The reason why I think this is relevant is because there are reports that the Raptors could be angling to trade up into the lottery, which is exactly what we're going to talk about today. If the Raptors are trading up into the lottery, what spots could potentially be available for them to move up into? That's the idea, yeah, behind today's video. It's not going to be a super long one, but it's going to be a fun one, so hopefully stick around. The first team that I want to talk about here, the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies have talked about trading their lottery pick, trading the number 8 overall selection for a win now player. The Raptors have a couple of those. You know what else the Raptors don't have? Probably the desire to win now, or at the very least, the desire might be there, but the realistic expectations that they would are another thing. So yeah, you get the idea, right? Like between Jakob Poeltl, Bruce Brown, I think in any scenario, those are like your two main kind of dangling pieces. I think Poeltl has to be at the right price / for the right selection with a guy available that, you know, the Raptors potentially really love. And I think Bruce Brown is almost a guarantee to be traded, whether that be as a part of the NBA draft, whether that be with the offseason, whatever the case is. Bruce Brown's getting traded. Bruce Brown's absolutely getting traded. My God, he, with all due respect to him, he should have been traded at the deadline. All that aside, yeah, the Grizzlies are a perfect avenue, to have the Raptors move in to the lottery. The Oklahoma City Thunder are probably another team that, for mostly the exact same reasons as the Memphis Grizzlies, are probably going to be open for business on draft night. And obviously with the Grizzlies, it's a little bit more so of reestablishing themselves in the Western Conference, because naturally, you know, they did just have the hospital bed season where everybody and their mother on that team was just injured. For the Thunder, it's a little bit different. For the Thunder, they're pushing for a title. They are not that far away at this point after this season. That what you saw from the Thunder, how good they looked, how quickly, obviously, they took the leap from a play-in team to the #1 seed in the Western Conference. Naturally, they got bounced. They got bounced in the second round by Luka Doncic and the Mavericks, but I think they're a lot closer to a potential title than maybe some people give them credit for. That being said, I assure you, that OKC locker room, that OKC management does feel like they are close to a title. Now, I don't think Sam Presti is going to jump the gun on anything extreme by any means. I don't think we're going to see any grand superstar trade or anything, although if he wanted it, he could probably get it done relatively easy. That being said, I do think the Thunder are in a position to push. I do think the Raptors, again, have a couple of pieces that could help them push. In particular, they are a team that would really benefit from a center, and I think a Jakob Poeltl for a specific matchup does actually really put them over the top. Again, like, you're gonna run into size. If you're the Thunder, you had major issues defending against size. You had issues rebounding the basketball. You're gonna need a guy that situationally is gonna get heavier minutes depending on the matchup, and I think Jakob, in theory, could be that guy. And again, the Thunder have so many assets they could play around, but if there was any team that I could think of who could make a Jakob Poeltl trade for the Raptors worthwhile, it would absolutely be the Thunder. Now, the last team here that I want to talk about is the Sacramento Kings. The Kings are in a position where they could potentially get left behind in the Western Conference. I think when you look over to the West, how many teams can you realistically, and just walk with me, think with me, like how many teams can you realistically look over there and say to some form or capacity that's not going to be a competitive team next year? 2? 3? Maybe? Probably 2. 2 is probably the number. Realistically speaking, that entire conference, almost that entire conference, is going to be competing for a playoff spot, or at least a play-in spot next season. And for my money's worth, by comparison, the Kings don't really look like a team that are particularly terrifying and a particularly credible threat next season, right? And I think in that effort, the Kings, they want to have an offseason where they are going to be aggressive. I think this is the offseason where you're going to need to see a considerable push, because otherwise there are teams that are below them right now that could pass them by. We've talked about the Grizzlies already. That's an excellent example of a team that, hey, they had a bad year this year. That's probably a playoff team next year. I'd be a little surprised if it wasn't a playoff team next year. Like, one kind of similar to this season is everything would kind of have to go wrong for that team, but that's a playoff team next season. You got the rise of somebody like Victor Wembanyama. You got the Pelicans angling to improve and potentially trade Brandon Ingram and do like a whole reset there and a retool. Like, teams are competitive. Teams are hungry. That is, again, just an incredibly competitive conference, excuse me. And if you're the Kings, like, yeah, De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis is cool. You got a couple other solid pieces there, but by comparison, some of these other teams, you don't really strike fear into anybody's hearts. And I know they were a playoff team this season, but again, season to season, things change. And I think for the Kings, they want to be aggressive this offseason. Otherwise, they're going to start tumbling down the standings again. And giving up that pick, again, for a more win now approach type of player, is probably a pretty decent move for them. I don't know if Bruce Brown is enough allure for them, because I realistically think this would be a Bruce Brown spot. I don't think this would be like a Pirtle spot or anything. But yeah, if Bruce Brown is a guy that could potentially get them over the top, fit in with the team, obviously not over the top. Bruce Brown's not putting anybody over the top. That's not already incredibly established. But if that's a guy that can help your team and you're willing to give up the lottery pick for it, like, that could be as decent a fit as anybody on this list. So what do you folks think? If you're the Raptors and if you're trying to move up into the lottery, which team do you think is the best bet to give you the spot and selection that you want? And so help me God, if somebody says San Antonio, when will we learn that trading with the Spurs post Kawhi Leonard will bring us nothing good? In all seriousness, I don't think that's happening. Just shitty joke for the end of the video there. Yeah, usual drill at the end of these. Hit that like button, makes a big difference. And if you're still watching, I hope you enjoyed it enough to smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Other than that, folks, it's been JJ Buckets. It's been a pleasure, and I will see everybody next time.